Good morning, everybody. Actually, good afternoon. Hope all is well. And I'd like to welcome today to our session as everyone's getting launched in. So hello, everyone, and welcome officially to Ask the Professional series. It's being put on by the BBPA to support our community, particularly as we go through and come out of this quarantine together. Today, I'm Anton James. I'm with Sandler Training, and I'm going to be your host today as we discuss some payroll tips and tricks. And our special guest today will be GarciaHanson-Francis, a CPM and CPE certified payroll expert. So first of all, welcome, Garcia. How are you?
Thank you, Anton. I'm very good. How are you?
Not too bad at all. So Garcia, tell us about yourself. Tell us about your background and so forth.
Absolutely. So I was born in Jamaica. I grew up in Canada. I'm a mother of 4 boys, and including twins, which are 9 months old.
Mercy.
Sorry?
Mercy.
Yes, I am a soccer mom, so I'm very busy. And my youngest plays for the Toronto FC Junior.
Okay.
And in relating to school, I graduated from Seneca College with a marketing diploma, and I went on to study payroll. I got my certified payroll management certificate, my PCP, and I also got my Pro Advisor, QBO Pro Advisor, sorry. And right now I'm currently finishing up my Chief Human Resource Leadership with the HRPA. I bring to the table about 16 years in the payroll and HR realm. I'm also a commissioner of oath for affidavit, and I started my own company, CADJPro Payroll Solutions. About 5 years now we've been in business, and we've just been focusing on payroll.
Wow, that's an awful lot of acronyms, a lot of letters behind your name and so forth. Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah.
So help us to understand why that background, and given all those different acronyms and so forth, what you do now and why.
So my passion is payroll. I chose to do payroll because I felt like it was my purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the main things for me is that I enjoy helping people. I like figuring things out. I'm a problematic. I do stuff behind the scenes. I'm almost called like a back office person. So everything to do with payroll, having to help someone to try and figure out how to calculate their pay. And I find now with like small business, a lot of companies don't know how payroll ties into their daily life. So my thing is more to step aside and focus on helping the client, take them away from their, let them focus on their daily tasks, and just to kind of help their employees be happy and making sure that they're following the right legislation. And that's kind of where I'm going.
All right. So,
Mm-hmm.
All right. So you're focusing on payroll. So are you focusing, do you just do a particular type of companies, or are there different types of employees? What type of companies utilize your services?
So I mainly deal with small business. So I start anywhere from about 1 to 50 employees. So when I say small business, they could have 1 employee, they could have 1,000. I mostly focus on manufacturing, legal. There's different aspects of it, but essentially it's payroll on a whole. So payroll that comes with reconciliation, payroll that comes with GL setup, payroll that comes with implementation, payroll that comes with policy. So these are the things that I do behind the scenes. So I spend a lot of time with clients, making sure that, what are their goals? What are they trying to meet? And how do they save money? And how do they reduce, their cost of hiring a full-time person? And right now I find that with COVID, there are a lot of challenges right now in our community with not getting a lot of resources.
Before you get into that side, let me slow you down for a quick second there, because you brought some interesting points back there.
Mm-hmm.
So typically speaking, when you're going to companies, what solution you tend to be solving? Like, what's the challenge that you're finding?
I think the biggest challenge that I see right now overall with any business that, clients that I'm almost having is poor data management system. So I'll give you an example. You have a small business company and they say, well, let me hire I'm going to say an AP person. An AP person is not trained to handle legislation. They don't know the back ends of, you know, how to set up a code or how to implement payroll. So the small business company, what they tend to do is it's easy for them. They can pay just any AP person and they just press the button. Don't forget, when you're pressing that button, behind the scenes, you have to make sure that you have codes that are set up. You have benefits that are driving from the employee. How are you saving money with all of that? Are the taxes being calculated properly? And what you have to understand too, when you go with, I'm going to say ADP as an example, because they're one of our competitors. When you choose to go to ADP, you send them your hours, whether it's salary or hourly, you give them the information and they process it. They're not concerned whether you're saving money. They're not concerned whether your GLs are mapped properly. And this is where myself, CADJPro, our team, we come in and we look at how you're set up as a company. I'll use recruiting as an example. You're a recruiting company and you want to achieve, you know, being able to go out and recruit the best talent. So we come on board now, and what we tend to do for you is we now take all your information, we look into it, we see where are you having challenges with the employee. Are you having compliance issues? Are you having issues managing, like, you know, vacation, statutory holiday? Because there's laws when it comes to payroll, and if you're not following those laws, it leads to audit. And I can say, if you end up in an audit, you don't know what's going to come out of it. And as a payroll professional, we take over dealing with the audit for you. We gather the information. We prepare everything that is required.
Okay, wow, that's an awful lot there. So let's go back and let's explore that a little bit now. So you're basically, you go to the client and you will not only process the payroll side, but you do the back end side. So, and you talked about legislation changing. Does the legislation change often? Like, is that something is it significant?
Well, you would better believe it, because when it comes to legislation, in Ontario, we're very fortunate because it doesn't change as much. But if you're dealing with a client that's from BC, I would say Quebec is the most difficult one. So if you're an Ontario company and you're paying employees in Quebec, there's so many different laws. When you talk about like WSIB, most companies believe that they don't need WSIB because they're just operating in the office. That's not true. You can have an employee sitting in the office and they go on the road and something happens. How are they being covered? So when I say the difference with being outsourced is that now we take a step back and we say, okay, you have 10 employees, for example, in your office. Is there a policy in place? Is there WSIB? Is there EHT? What happens if you get into an audit? What do you need to calculate that employee's pay? So we look at all the different things. We don't just say, give me your hours and we process it. We make sure that those hours are tied with legislation. So legislation in terms of like hours, I'll give you an example. Let's say you're paying an employee $10 an hour. In Ontario, minimum wage is $14. And an employer doesn't know that they should be at $14. Well, you could be in a lot of problems. The reason why I say that is because you cannot pay below employment standards. You either can match it or you go above. So you can have an unhappy employee coming on board and saying, well, you're giving me $10 an hour, and you're going to tell them that, oh, I just sent it to the payroll company and they did that. Well, now as a consultant, what we do is we let you know. We give you the information, and with us professionals, we have to maintain a certain amount of hours in order to keep our certification. So with that come, pretty much every week we're in school. Something changes, we're the first to know. So Anton, I'll give you an example. A legislation may pass in a week from now, and you don't know about it, but I know about it before you because I have the inside knowing that I'm certified and we get the information first. Sometimes we're on the panel board and we know what's going to change. We have an input to say what's going to change. We can suggest, you know, companies that are struggling. So these are some of the things that we tend to deal with that you don't get if you go somewhere else.
Okay, that's a lot more than someone might think. So basically, if I understand it correctly there, you are, so does your team facilitate all the aspects of all the different units, or that you just point out? Like when you go to a company, you basically outsource their whole section, is that what you do?
Yeah, so I'll use you as an example. You own Burger King, for example, and you decided you have about 40 employees want to come on board.
Yeah.
It's not just, I'm going to take your information and bring all 40 employees on board. It comes down to different things. So one, I have to now segregate them into pay groups. When I say pay groups, you will have full-time, you will have part-time, you will have contract. And once you segregate everything, now you can set up what's called scheduling. So when we build a schedule, you're going to tell me, how are you comfortable? Do you have enough money in the account to pay your employees on a bi-weekly basis, a weekly basis? And I'll give you options. And then from there, we'll build codes that go with your employees. So if you pay benefits, for example, let's say you offer 80-20. So you're paying 80% of the benefits and your employees are paying 20%. So we now have to look at it to make sure that that 20% that the employees are paying, it's mapped into their pay so that it can drive what's coming off of their pay stub. Behind the scenes with that is you have to make sure that the statutory deductions are coming off first. So we can't just say, Anton, we are going to deduct their salary and then they're going to get a net pay. So it has to go with the main deductions first, and then we get to the statutory deduction. Once we have everything set up, we go through the whole implementation. We let you know what's not going to work, and we try to work with you to make sure that you're maintaining, the right compliance. Once all of that is set up, we then take it, we do testing behind the scenes. We show you kind of what it's going to look like. We also handle the remittances for you. So we take a step back and we make sure that your remittances are going based on the schedule. And what I'm finding these days is that most companies are not having business numbers set up. So they can't operate to send them.
To that one, I want to, because you're hitting a few things. For clarity, because you said this last stuff that you're currently doing. How is what you doing distinguished from what other companies are doing? Like, do one companies only do one sector and you're doing a whole heap, or is it all companies do this and therefore you're only specializing?
I would say not all companies do this. So if you're comparing to one of our competitor, ADP, for example, ADP will just process your information and send you a report. Here at CADJPro, what we do, as for myself, we would be giving you real-time information. So we're handling the back-end office. We're like your support staff for the back-end stuff. So we're taking care of your reconciliation. So we don't just process the payroll and take the money out of your account. We make sure that while we're processing this, we're reconciling. So at the end of the year, if you told me, Anton, that you had a budget of 40,000 and all of a sudden now we're at 60,000, that's my job to figure out, why is Anton over his budget? Why is this happening? Did we pay somebody wrong? Did we double up an employee? Did we short-term deductions? And these things do come into play because these are tax savings for you at the end of the year. If it's not done properly to start, that's where you run into trouble. So at the end of the year, now we have to make sure that everything is tied into the T4 and tied into your budget.
Perfect. So based upon what you're saying, tell me, what is a company, an ideal type company that would utilize this? You say you specialize in small. Now, break down what small means. Are you talking about entrepreneurial singular shop, a lawyer, a service provider? Are you talking about 1 to 25? What's the ideal size and will need of this? So a company, what is an ideal company size for a service such as your own?
Our ideal size is anywhere from 1 to 1,000. We do accept over 1,000. Sorry?
Why?
Well, the main reason is because we want to focus on the things to help our clients. We want to spend that time with the clients, and we find that within that range, we find new clients that come on board. Not only is it easier to set up, but you get them to a point where you're starting out, like you're starting to make sure that, everything is in place, and it's easy, it's cheaper because for data management system, some companies that are over 1,000, they don't want to pay the cost of having a proper system. And the challenge that we're finding is that the more the employees are, the more the customer will cut back on the system. And the more employees you have, the better it is that you invest in that money to make sure that you have a system that can support your employees. So we tend to focus on that because we find that we get more positive results from our customers. And in the end, like if for whatever reason we have a customer and they suggest us to someone with 2,000 employees, we don't turn them away. We help them, but we let them know that you will need a system that, you know, it's going to need a proper speed. It's going to need to you know, be able to carry certain features like, you know, set up vacation, set up sick time. So it's not just about, you know, the fact that it's between 1 to 1,000. It's can the client afford it? So we try to work with small business that are just starting out and, you know, they don't have as much resources. So we give them that and we take it from there. If they want to evolve on it when they get to like 2,000 employees, then we help them there as well.
Perfect. Well, listen, as we transition to, we're about to transition into the community. As everyone out there, if anyone has any questions as we continue to go along, feel free to either type your questions in the question box itself in below, or raise your hand and I'll allow you to ask the questions directly. So by all means, it's an interactive process. I have no problem stopping and kind of steering towards you. So now let's move a little bit forward there. Garcia, what's some of the main challenges you're seeing in business today as it relates to payroll? What are you actually seeing like on a day-to-day?
I would say some of the things, there's 3 things that I'm seeing with it's such a challenge right now. And it's for my clients, I see it when I go, because I volunteer as well, I do see this happen in the community. There are a lot of compliance issues. So we have businesses starting out and they say, well, if you work for me, I'll pay you cash, or I'll give you $10, but really you're not being compliant by offering $10 when you don't know what the rules are. The other 2 things I would say, there is no system in place. There's no data management system. And the last thing is the reporting and balancing. So,
it's
sorry?
Lack of compliance, regulatory systems, and data management.
Yes.
And what are the problems if they do not have those 3 pieces?
If you don't have those 3 pieces, we work with you to be able to centralize and standardize your process for you. And we also provide you real-time reporting. So if you don't have that, that leads to an audit. And I'm not saying that everyone will get an audit. An audit is usually random. And if you don't comply, if you're having compliance issue, you want to get it cleaned up, because if it's not cleaned up and an auditor comes in, not only are they going to look at the year that you're having issues with, they're going to go back into all the years from when you started your business, and they're going to dig up everything else that they can find. And that's when you run into more issues. Yeah.
Okay. And so based upon your experience, are you seeing a lot of companies, are they able to meet compliance issues, or are most companies in compliance, or are they having troubles that way? Like have you been finding?
I've been finding a mixture of both. I'm going to say about 30 to 35% of the customers that I'm seeing are having compliance issues. And it's not that they meant to do it. It's just, they thought it would be cheaper just to do things themselves. But because when you're a business owner, you're focused on so many different things. You're worried about your budget. You're worried about the sales. You're worried about, the financial part of it. And you don't have time to really focus on payroll. And I can tell you, payroll can be very complex, but we simplify it for you. And at the same time, when we see companies with these challenges, we try our very best to help them, to make sure that, whatever is required, we suggest things to them. They don't necessarily have to, come to us. We do offer free resources as well. And I do encourage, clients to tap into, especially like the BBPA. There's resources available. Don't just take what you hear, do your research. That's how I would recommend it too.
Perfect. Now, those challenges you're talking, you said 35%. Is that unique to our community? And if so, what do you find that's in other communities?
It's not specifically to our community. I find it's a mixture. So
With
if you look at Toronto and you compare Toronto to Ajax, in Toronto there's a lot of resources, whereas if you're comparing Ajax you'll find in the community there's a lot of nonprofit organizations that are offering like free webinars, but the free webinars may be about an hour, and then a business owner get off of that, and for them, it didn't mean anything to some of them because you're not going in depth with it. They want to see more information, and they're just like, okay, I know enough to figure out how to pay my employees. But when it comes to like Toronto community, I would say there's a lot of resources out there, but you really have to tap into it. And with everything that's happening now, I would say, you know, take advantage of it, like whether it's free, and you also have to invest in the right resources as well.
Okay. We have a question coming in from Charnel Bernard. For my business, people recommended using QuickBooks. Curious, what's your thoughts on this, especially for her business starting out? She says she only has 2 employees. What's your recommendation?
I use QuickBooks today with some of my clients. I can tell you QuickBooks will do some things for you, and there are things that it will not do. I would not tell you that I wouldn't recommend it because you only have 2 employees. With just 2 employees, QuickBooks is perfect for you because it will just get you to the main point of payroll. So it will calculate your taxes for you. There is a little bit of manual entry involved, which means that at the end of the year, if you're not on top of it with QuickBooks because you're just plugging everything into the system, it's not doing anything for you. You need to make sure that you're on top of your year-end target. So don't wait till the end of the year to try and figure out, by the way, I issued a manual check to an employee, which I forgot to put in QuickBooks. And I believe with QuickBooks, it doesn't allow you to put it in the time that you forget it. You have to wait until the next cycle. So if you forget and you didn't update that employee's T4, you will have some issues at the end of the year. And then those issues will lead to CRA. The employee's T4 might be wrong and your financials may be off, but I would also advise you to keep an Excel spreadsheet, reconcile everything. So whatever you pay, make sure that your remittance are going out on time, and make sure that, you know, you are taking the main deductions that's required by Canada Revenue Agency.
Great. So let me ask you a question. So as a lot of players, a lot of companies per se are probably on a QuickBooks type solution. If they find themselves in challenges, like are you just able to interject at the beginning stage, or are you able to help them out if they find themselves halfway through the year, or say, as you just mentioned, at the end of the year? Are you able to help them out solve that problem to kind of, you know, help alleviate the CRA challenges or potential audits, or even through that audits? Are you able to help there as well?
Yes, so I can tell you that we don't just look at current situation, we look at the past too. So if you're in the middle, like I'm gonna use now is July, and year end for a customer, it would be like December. And a customer come to us today and they're having challenges. We don't just look at what's happening today. What we do is we'll go back, like if the customer's been around for, let's say, 5 years, we'll take the last 2 years to see what was done. Was it done correctly? What is happening now? Is it up to par? Is it doing what it's supposed to do? Once we look at those things, we'll assess the QuickBooks. So we'll assess to see, is there an error with QuickBooks? Is this something that can be fixed? Do we need to get you on a different system? Do we need to make sure that your codes are set up? Are they operating properly? Once we do all of that assessment, we can kind of guide you on the pathway to know that whether you're on the right system or not. I can give you just a quick example, just to add to this question. I went into a customer a very big customer, I'm going to say about 900 employee, and the customer they'd had WSIB set up, but they have many different plants. I'm going to say about 16 different plants in Ontario, Quebec, everywhere they had a plant. And they had WSIB set up the same way they did for a Hamilton and a Toronto employee. Mind you, if you're working in Hamilton and you drive to Toronto, you're at risk. So the client was paying a significant amount of money. And in the end, I went back about 3 years for the client, and all that money that they've paid, it was very painful. I couldn't stand to watch it. But what I did, I took some time and I went through the whole thing. I remapped the WSIB so that employees and supervisors were categorized in the right safety group. Once I did that, I can tell you, I don't have a copy today, but the employer ended up getting a check of about 200K. And I drove down to that office and I picked up that check, and boy, was the employer happy, because now they realized that WSIB is important, but they didn't know how important it was. They were just plugging in numbers and just letting the system do things for them. And that's the downfall, when you just allow the system to do stuff for you.
Well, that's actually interesting, because that's one of the questions I'm going to ask you is, what tools and systems and resources do you see being used, and how are these resources and tools hindering or helping clients?
I would say some of the resources that I see are being used is just manual Excel files. Some are using those free accounting software. So there are a few softwares out there that comes with payroll, and you may just, it may just be like an add-on, not as close as QuickBooks, but some of them do the job. There is nothing behind the scenes that's operating. It's just set up as a basic system. I do see that there's some challenges with it, because now with what's happening, some people are not able to qualify for loans. If you need a business loan at the bank, and with COVID and everything happening, you are not able to be qualified for certain things because you don't have your resources in order. So my advice would be—
That's a very hot point there that I want to talk about. What resources do they need to have in order? Because for a lot of companies, that may be a serious challenge that mentioned. We talk about which one specifically?
The main one is you need to have a proper payroll system. Proper payroll system, whether you're going to go with QuickBooks or FreshBooks, once you have a proper payroll system in place, you need someone to be able to map everything for you. That's the main resource to operate a payroll. You can't just operate a payroll off of Excel or just doing it manually. I mean, 16 years ago when I started payroll, we used to do it manually, and it was a challenge. But now it's a more challenge, because if you just have everything on paper, by any point you can have a fire in the office. Things can happen. You don't have stuff that you can write off. So having the right payroll system in place will get you to where you want to get to. And then at the same time, you can focus on business and not having to worry about that. I didn't pay my employees right. Something's not happening. CRA didn't get my deduction. Why is this not showing up on my budget report? So these are things that I would look at as well.
Okay, so one of the things that they need to have is a proper payroll system. What else would they necessarily need? Like, as I said, I've heard quite a bit of companies unable to qualify. So because of lack of systems. One's a payroll. Is there anything else that really stands out that you're seeing being challenged basically with the existing tools that, the startup tools that people are using? You mentioned Excel, you mentioned QuickBooks. Is there any other tools or challenges or systems that they need?
I think it's important to have policies in place. You need to have standardized policy. If you're just paying an employee off of the basis of, I like you and I'm going to give you $14 an hour, it doesn't work like that, because you may hire another employee another day and they may say, well, you gave John $14, why are you giving me this much? So having that in place, it helps you, because now you can provide yourself with like proper reporting, and it just, at the end of the year, now when you go to, to balance, you have something in place to kind of guide you.
That makes sense. Okay. When you talk about coming out of COVID specifically, how do you see COVID affecting the business in our community specifically?
To be quite honest with you, right now with COVID, in the payroll industry, I see so many people are struggling to stay alive, just to maintain a livelihood and just to make payroll. I see cutbacks. I see one of the hardest things is that companies now have to demote employees, like they have to give them a lesser pay, and it's kind of hard, but at the same time they're trying to make payroll and they're trying to help each of their employees. And another challenge that I see during COVID is that with everyone, most people working from home, if your books are not in order, you're not able to take advantage of some of the write-offs that are out there.
Okay. So as you see it now, what should business be doing right now? Those that are just trying to stay alive, that's one. And those that are alive, what should they be doing?
I think from a business perspective, I think business should really be looking to reinvent and to restructure, starting to invest more into your, your payroll world. Your payroll, once your payroll is set up, you're okay to do everything else. The sales will come, have your team set up in place, but really just to maybe restructure and reinvent everything.
All right. Are you seeing that most companies, are they in this as they're coming out now, are they trying to go back to what they were doing before? Or are they trying to pivot towards a new normal? And if so, how should they, for companies that need to pivot, what should they be doing in order to effectively pivot going forward?
I do see a lot of business that are being pivoted and evolved right now. And my biggest concern is that these companies that are staying in the world that they used to be in, you will face a challenge now, because my biggest fear is that they're going to suffer consequences if they can't adapt to new things. There's a lot of new technology out there. And with most business owners saying, well, we like the way we do things, we want to keep it that way, you will have challenges, because I can tell you now, with working from home, there's a lot of technology software out there that will help you get to where you want to get to. But at the same time, you have to invest into that. You can't just sit back and say, well, I'm comfortable with what I do. You have to be able to take risks at the same time.
Well, that's absolutely true. And growth, I'm a strategist at heart. So for me, it's not just about making money. It's about how do you keep money, to keep as much as what you earn. Let me ask you this.
Yeah.
What do you do, or what suggestions could you possibly give a company to help do things such as reduce their costs or save taxes or position their company going forward? What should a company look to? Because I'm skeptical, or I'm somewhat concerned, because I think a lot of companies may be doing just as you mentioned earlier on, just using the Excel spreadsheet, just using QuickBooks. Is that optimizing their effectiveness?
No, just doing that alone will not optimize their effectiveness. Companies will tend to see a lot of cost savings with outsourcing their data entry piece, because that will help you with the calculation of statutory deductions, filing long-term, like long-term benefits, like if you offer your employee benefits. It will also help you to take care of any write-offs that's out there. So I strongly recommend that working with a professional to be able to help yourself to move forward. Don't just sit back and just take it as it is. Find someone that can help you. We also specialize in that as well. But I think companies now, they have to be able to adapt to new changes.
Okay. We're about to transition into going forward, but we have a question here.
Yeah.
With companies that are 100% remote,
Yeah.
you still see they still have to register and pay WSIB insurance?
So WSIB is a little bit tricky, and that's a topic that I would perhaps discuss in a longer term. But not everyone has to be registered for WSIB. If you're working from home, you're still at risk. So some things that your home insurance could cover, but you don't mix personal with business. So I mean, signing up for WSIB, we'd have to look at it to see what type of work you're doing, where are you traveling to, and if you're able to, if you meet the standards of, following the right rules, I guess, then you don't need WSIB. But you have to meet certain criteria, and we qualify you based on the WSIB. There's certain things that we have to go through with you. We don't just say sign you up for WSIB. And it doesn't matter how many employees you have. It just really comes down to the safety. And if you're in your home, and most clients are remote these days and maybe not planning to go back to the office within the next couple months, I would say reevaluate it, get as much information, because the Workers' Compensation Board, they are offering a lot of information for work from home clients now. So I would say tap into these resources as well. And if you're not able to get it, I mean, sign up with BBPA and they can provide some of those to you as well. Or you can visit our website. We'll be more than happy to share that with you.
All right. Again, everyone, anyone, if you have some questions, please continue to put some questions in the side panel, or you can raise your hand and I'll raise those questions for you. So, in advice going forward now. So, Garcia, what's some of the practical hands-on solutions to solve many of the challenges for businesses? As we talk, you specialize in small to medium, and that's fair. Mm-hmm. So, in order to survive and thrive, some of these business owners, what must they do to transform? We've talked about they must transform, but what specifically should they be doing?
I think some of them, you know, perhaps maybe reposition your financials so that it helps you to, you know, get some of these government programs. There's a lot of government fundings out there, but you have to be able to reposition your financials and set forth that, you know, what are the qualifications that you need to meet. As an example, if you are not set up on payroll, you don't have a system in place, and you're now trying to qualify for these government programs, I can tell you that the bank will refuse you. The reason why I say that is because
that's really important what you're saying. Let me slow you down there. So a lot of these companies, what do they need to do to set themselves up so they do qualify? Let's talk about it, because I don't want to assume that everyone knows. What are those things they have to do?
Well, I would say reposition your financials, reinvest. So look at the things that, you know, you need help with. So for instance, like if your budget is very small and you're looking to get like a loan, for example, there's things that you can do. You can do cutbacks. Like if you offer benefits, for example, you can maybe do for a short period of time, you can change your benefit module and you can offer where employees cover a small portion, and it's just for a period of time, but you need to have like a certain contract in place. I'm gonna say maybe just try and reinvent some of the things that you were working on. So if you had 10 things set up for COVID, you can now cut it back. You can cut it back and, you know, maybe try to get free resources from those non-profit organizations to kind of help you to see what is out there, what are the qualifications that you require. And when I say qualifications, like for example, if you're trying to apply for a $40,000 loan, you need to be able to show that you have $20,000 in payroll. So if you're okay. So if you're not showing $20,000 in payroll, you need to now look at it to see, what do I need to meet $20,000 in payroll? Is it because I'm using my Excel file and my Excel file is not doing what it's supposed to do? You go back now and you say, maybe I need to put this person on payroll because they're now a contractor and they need to now go on payroll to make me qualify. As you know, if you have a contractor and you have them not on payroll, that won't qualify you for a loan. You need to be able to get them on payroll and set them up to pay deductions so that it shows in your financials.
Okay. Now you said you got to readjust your financials. Is there anything else they need to do in addition?
You can also increase your online presence. I think a lot of businesses now, they are just stuck in the old days where, you know, they don't want anyone to help them. When you increase your online presence, it just gives you it just puts you out there more, and there's people that would want to help you and share information with you. I would say also look at KPIs, other technology, invest in different technology. Maybe you have 3 different systems. You have one for payroll, you have one for accounting, you have one for sales. Maybe cut back and maybe save some money where you could just have one system do everything for you. So these are stuff that I would look at, like maybe new technology as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Before we go on, we have a question coming in from Louis Chevalier, I think it is, has a question. Louis, go ahead and unmute your mic and ask your question. There you are.
Hello.
Hi.
Yeah, so one of my parents, they work at a company, and right now they're working remotely. but the boss wants them to come back and um, basically come back to the office and basically in a way do what they've been doing basically remotely. So I'm kind of wondering if they're wasting money, or if it's going back to the office is like kind of a bad idea.
I wouldn't say going back to the office is a bad idea because every business is different, right? Really and truly, like if you're working remote and you're going back to the office, perhaps you're paying the same salary. I don't think you would increase or decrease what you'd be paying. It's just that now you have to look at safety measures. Is it safe for the person? Do I need to now provide masks? So that's going to add some costs to your finances, because now you have to provide sanitizer. Now you have to make sure it's safe for them. How often are you going to sanitize? Will you have someone come on board every hour, every half an hour, just to say, to be able to, wash down the station? Do you now have to look at, millwork costs? Is where the person is sitting, was there someone sitting next to them? And now you need to have like a board in between now to say, I'm going to border you off from this person. So these are added costs. So it's not necessarily that going in would be a waste of time. It's just what you're comfortable with. If your budget allows you to go back to the office, don't forget when you're at the office too, if you're renting a building, you're also paying rent. Do you want to pay rent for just, having a building and there's nobody there? Or you can also save money by saying, well, you can come to the office 2 days a week and you can work from home 3 days a week and you can get the same salary. But that way you're saving by not having to sanitize it every single day. You're just cutting back to 2 days a week.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome.
So right now we're talking, there's a lot of stuff we're talking here, Garcia. This is really interesting. But let's walk it through the actual page. So if I had a small business and I'm now learning that, my QuickBooks or my Excel sheet is not suffice. We really got to start with training and improvement. How does someone going about implementing some of those improvements you've been talking about from a system, from an infrastructure, financials? How do they go about doing that?
Well, there's things that you could start off with. So to begin, you need to understand what you're paying, first of all. You need to understand what's involved in the system. So if you're going to have a system in place, a new system, I'm going to say, not an Excel file, you need to know, have internal controls within that. So having internal controls, you're going to maintain records. So are you going to keep employees' records? I'm going to use, because we're working from home, you now have to maintain the records, I'm going to say, for at least 7 years, according to CRA. Maintaining these records, you now have to look at the risk involved with working from home. How you're going to map it out, how are you going to set up your filing, how do you want your remittance to be done? Do you need CRA to now change your remittance schedule? So setting up a new customer is different from setting up a customer that's already in place. So we just look at what is the issue now with the way you're set up. If you're using QuickBooks or Excel, we will now look at the fact that, okay, QuickBooks is not handling your GL, and GL is the complexity of payroll. If it's not set up to do the right thing, and I know with QuickBooks as an example, if you're using it to do payroll, you have to do an extra step to make sure that the GL is set up properly. The GL is what leads to your financial, what gets you to the accountant. So when the accountant start asking you questions at the end of the year saying, well, why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do that? Then you got to go back and review your GL is not set up properly. Perhaps something driving from your payroll, perhaps you're not getting the right report. So these are things that I would really examine.
Okay, so there's two ways really to do this. We're really talking about training and transitioning their resources. And there's two ways to really do it there. But can you recommend any resources, whether it's government, community, industry resource that someone can access so they can understand a little bit more? Or do you think this is far too complex that they just need to get an outside professional?
No, I don't think it's so complex that you have to get an outside professional. I think there's a lot of resources. So BBPA does offer resources. You can tap into that. Go to your local community. If you're not able to go there, if you go on their website, like for example, Ajax website, they are offering a lot of training, and it's free by all means. It may not be exactly what you want, but it offers something. And as a volunteer with the Government of Canada, I can also tell you that they offer a lot of programs to help you as well. And what comes with that is they have some professionals that work with businesses. So if they see that you need some help and you need information on, you know, qualifying for a loan, they will recommend that you see a professional, but they'll give you the basic information to kind of get you started. I'd say those are very important, and just maybe staying on top of, like, you know, those free webinars. Like for example, I'm registered with the Canadian Payroll Association, and they also throw out some free resources out there. So the community would be your best start, because there's a lot of free programs that they have available for you.
Okay, okay. So let me understand this. What is some quote unquote good idea or top 5 tips or tricks that you would recommend that a business owner should actually look at or explore going forward?
I would look at one thing. I would say maybe do your research on local programs. That's, for me, that's really important, that you can't just say, you know, I have to pay. You're not paying for it. So it's very important. Reevaluate your team. So, you know, security, the reason why I say reevaluate your team is because security plays a big issue. So if you're having, for example, someone doing payroll and that same person is handling sales, you're going to have some issues there. We also provide information on our website if you need further details. But I'm going to say, I think those kind of stand out more for me. And I would basically look into, like, what would I'm thinking the thing that you need to focus on is compliance. It's so big, it's so important. It's like the #1 thing for payroll. Another thing would be like the systems that you're using. Reevaluate that. Reevaluate your processes.
So let's break them down one by one. So you said the systems, you said the technology, and what systems would therefore you recommend and what would you not? So name your top, I don't know, top 3, top 5 systems that you would recommend for small business to utilize.
The ones that I really have used and familiar and enjoy using. So CRA has a tool, I don't know if anyone have heard of it, called PDoc. This is what you use to basically, if you don't know enough about payroll, it helps you to calculate your pay, like your basic pay. That's a big one. QuickBooks is also a good one. The reason why I say that is because QuickBooks now can do the payroll, and it can also help you with your accounting, your bookkeeping. That's a second one. Another one would be FreshBooks is a high-end one as well. It doesn't do everything, but at least it helps you. And I would say if you're using our services, we will look into different aspects of which one will do better for you. So if you're just going out on your own, you can try either one of those. So it will work just the same, but it will just do the basic for you. So yeah.
Okay, is there systems that you're saying people should avoid, i.e. is in Excel, or is there things that, you know what, you've seen it really cause problems, if not in the short term, but they oftentimes lead to non-compliance? Is there a system that you're saying, you know what, avoid these type of systems, even if you don't want to call them by name?
I'm one not to throw systems out there because I've come across a few systems.
Is there don't have to call them by name. I'm going to say like the Excels or whatever the case is, but there are ones that, because of really what we want to do, we want to better position companies right now to go forward. And some people, they're operating, you know, oftentimes I've seen in smaller companies, the president, he does payroll, he does sales, he does everything by himself, not thinking it's because he's so small that, you know, this is not necessarily a problem because it's works for him, not recognizing what's coming down the road. And really want to position people to say, listen, you know what, this may be a great pivotal time to change or reevaluate these aspects.
I would say I love Excel. It will do the basic for you, and you can use macros and all of that. It will do quite a bit for you. But if you're trying to calculate someone's pay, you're running a risk. Do not use Excel to figure out somebody's pay. Do not try to do it manually. It can cause errors. You will run into problems. You will run into many audit issues, I will tell you that. I would say stay away from those systems that you're using for your benefits, that you're also using for your payroll. It doesn't do the same thing. It's completely different.
So different systems for payroll. Okay. Any other tips that you'd possibly give?
I would say if you have anywhere from between five and up employees,
Yeah.
if you can find a proper system that will accommodate the hire, like the HR, when I say HR, like that can store your company's information. So like your new hire information when you first hire them. So like their social insurance number, and it's password protected. Do not go for a system that, you know, you just log in and it remembers your password. You need something that's more secure, where once you put in your password, you have a different access. So for example, Anton, if you get a system that accommodates your HR, your payroll, your sales, you have a different access from I do. So you can go in and you can look at sales, but you can't see how much I make. So that's the biggest one that I would recommend, is if you have a system where, don't just take it. Make sure it's password protected. Make sure it comes with the security that is attached to it. Like for example, one of the systems that we use some of the Ceridian systems.
Ceridian, okay.
Yeah, we use Ceridian. And when we look at, you know, what works best for a client, we look at the security behind the scenes. So as a consultant, we have access, but we also give our clients access. We give our clients different access from what their salesperson would get. So the business owner would not see, they would see everything that we see, but we wouldn't show that to their salesperson. We wouldn't show them the same thing. So I think because when you're trying to protect employee information, you have to be so careful. So a system that is very highly password protected will do the job.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, listen, Garcia, I thank you so much. Let me ask you, you've shared a lot of information here with regards to systems and processes.
Mm-hmm.
If someone wanted to learn more, where would they go? Where would they get a hold of you to get some more insights? Whether they need a resource, needed access to resources, where would they go?
So you can call, I can provide the website information. I can share that as well. We do provide 15-minute consultation to our clients that want to know information and just want to get resources. Whether it be, you know, one employee that you have where you have 50, we can provide that as well. I'm going to share my contact information with you all. You can find us at www.CADJPro.com. Let me just quickly share that, and so everyone can see it if you need to get that. 1 second here.
And tell me, help us to understand what the name. What is CAD? I can't even pronounce it. What is the name?
CADJPro.
CADJPro.
So think of it this way: CADJ with a space and then pro. So the CAD, I'm a mommy's. You know, I love kids. So it has a lot to do with my children. So the company kind of referenced back to my children. So, you know, when you think of CADJPro, you're thinking family, you're thinking personalized. You put yourself in your client's shoes. So if a client comes to you screaming and say, I only have $50, but I need to pay this person, you're going to get down and do whatever you can to do for that client. And that's what CADJPro do. It's like family oriented. It's very personalized. It's not just give us your information and we're going to leave you alone. We'll take care of you just like your family.
Perfect. So I thank you for that. For everyone, once again, on the line, this is GarciaHanson-Francis. You're going to see her contact information below. If you have any additional questions, as she said, she gets 50 minutes free consultation for those that just need to have understanding. As I thank you so much, I'm going to turn it over to Ross right now as we're going forward. Thank you so much, Garcia.
Thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure.
Well, thank you, Garcia, for such information today on payrolling. I certainly learned a lot. So on behalf of the BBPA, I'd like to thank you. I'd like to thank Anton as well, our trusty host who led this session today. Gavin, if you would please just share the screen. You know, the BBPA, we have a number of programs. We have a number of opportunities for you to get involved. This evening, and let's get it up here. Okay, so next week, our Ask the Professional series continues, not on Wednesday, but on Thursday. And we have a team from Ogilvy. Ogilvy is a marketing agency that focuses on marketing strategy, planning, branding, digital marketing. And we have the pleasure of having the team from Ogilvy, part of their team, including their CEO, join us for Ask the Professional next week. And they'll talk a little bit about a day in the life of the Ogilvy team. So anybody who's interested in marketing, anybody who wants to find out more information as to what an marketing agency does, I would encourage you to join us next Thursday for that, and it will be moderated by our very own president of the BBPA, Nadine Spencer. Also tonight, we continue with our Little Jamaica recovery plan. We have been doing a lot of work with helping revitalize Little Jamaica, which is Eglinton West. And tonight we will be again joined by Sandra Whiting, who will be the storyteller and the host. And we have a few speakers, Dane Williams from Black Urbanism Toronto. We have also Ron Nash from the city of Toronto, and Cheryl Case, who is an urban planner. And again, our president, Nadine Spencer. So tonight at 6 o'clock, please feel free to join us to learn a little bit more about what we're doing in Little Jamaica. I'd like to thank everybody for joining as well. And stay tuned, look at our website and for information on our programs. Thanks all and have a great day.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.